Go. There we go. And unmute Lydia, and I'll spotlight me so everyone can see me. Here we are. Hi, everyone. My name is Janet Forrest. I'm one of the adult program coordinators for the Nantucket Atheneum. And we have another edition of Yummy Monday. So we're going to have Lydia Sussek presenting tonight. Before we do that, I just want to plug a couple of things we have coming up at the library. We have, if you're not familiar with it, we have Janie Hobson DuPont does iPhone classes. So if you need some help with technology, she does stuff on Google Drive as well. And her classes are Tuesday mornings at 10 a.m. So tomorrow, she's doing a class on listening to audiobooks, music, and lectures on your phone, so that you can sign up online. Also on Wednesday, October 13th, so 2 days from now, Peter Panchi is going to be in conversation with Nat Philbrick about his new book, Travels with George, and that's 7 p.m. And that's this Wednesday at 7 p.m. So all of that, you can sign up on our website, just like you did here. You can go to nantucketatheneum.org, and I will put that link in our chat. But without any further ado, I'm going to let Lydia introduce herself. And tonight she's going to be presenting on marinades for seafood. So take it away, Lydia.
Hi, good evening. Thanks for having me, Janet. So tonight we're going to talk about seafood preparation, marinades, and I like to do lots of different things with fish. So we'll talk about dried marinades, wet marinades, and things that have to do with like ceviche, which cooks the fish for you in lime juice, and so on and so forth. So the first thing we're going to do is something I'm actually making for dinner tonight. It's my husband's favorite way to make salmon. So I have just a little fillet of salmon, and I'm going to add panko. I'm going to find some, I have it. Somewhere I have some, oh, here it is. Horseradish. Now you can use the red one or the white one. And this is actually, it sounds kind of strange, but when it cooks in, you don't taste the horseradish. It just gives it a really good flavor. Extra virgin olive oil, finely chopped garlic if you like, and any fresh herbs that you want. Sometimes I put thyme in. This actually, because I was in a rush coming home tonight, I got a seasoned panko. You can buy it pre-seasoned with like Italian flavors or anything you want. So the mixture is the same amount of wet to dry. So I'm going to take a big dollop of my white horseradish, and I'm going to mix it in so you can see it's almost the same. It'll be the same consistency of wet to dry. I like to use really good extra virgin olive oil. So I'm putting probably about 3 tablespoons of the oil, about 2-3 tablespoons of the horseradish. And then I'm going to add, this is kind of the magic ingredient. Now, if you're vegetarian, you don't have to use the chicken broth, but I use chicken broth, the bone broth, just a little bit to wet the, just maybe 2 teaspoons, two glugs, maybe. And you mix it up. You could also put in some powdered mustard if you like. Anyway, so I'm making kind of a paste with that. And when I finish the paste, I'm just going to I'm going to smear it on the fish and let it sit for about a half an hour, and then we can talk about some other things. So if you can see what I'm doing, I'm just dumping it on, and then I'll smear it on. And that'll sit nicely while we're talking. So you can use your hands, or you can just use a spoon to just get it all around the edges. And it sort of becomes like a crusty kind of looking thing. And you could do this a couple of hours before your dinner, if you want, before the meal, and just let it sit in the fridge. Some people, you could even leave it overnight as long as there's no lemon in there or vinegar. That's a good way to go. And then the next thing that we can talk about while that's getting ready is some marinades. So I personally love to use dry rub marinades on my fish and meat as well. And so I have like a base of what I use for almost every kind of food, which is garlic powder, Sometimes I use paprika, onion powder, and as many fresh herbs as I have handy. Now, when I make fish, I usually add thyme. That's just my favorite seafood kind of dry marinade. I also can do a lemon marinade, which I would slice very thinly sliced lemons. And the picture that actually you sent out today, which is on the invitation, Janet, has one of my favorite marinade items, which is leeks and onions. I guess I can try to pull it up on my phone. Some of the pictures, maybe that'll be good.
Oh, I could probably share it. I can track it down and share it.
Okay. So anyway, and depending on if you're cooking in the grill or in the oven or on the top of the stove, I would change the amount of liquid that I use. So I usually put a little extra liquid if I'm going to be grilling. And if you, at Glidden's, they were selling these very thinly sliced cedar. They're like paper thin cedar, they're like squares, and they come with twine to wrap them in. So actually in that picture, and I think I can pull it up actually. In that picture is what this looks like if you were to put it in the cedar twine. So this is my salmon with cilantro, lemon, leeks, or you can do little tiny spring onions, and just a little bit of pepper or any seasoning salt that you want. And I like to soak those little wrappers in white wine for a couple of hours. You can leave them overnight like that. And it makes an amazing flavor, and that's good for the grill. Oh, that's great. That's it. That's the picture. It's great on the grill, or you could even put it in the oven like that, and it just becomes like a steaming pouch. So it comes with like cooking string, so you can enclose it, and it does steam the fish. And if it was on the grill, I only do about 5 minutes on each side at the most. With salmon, I would do it. It does take a little extra time than the normal salmon on the grill if you were to use, or any fish, because it does have a barrier between the fish and the grill. So normally if you like a medium rare, it would be less time on the grill, but this adds a little bit of time. It also is nice. It helps with cleaning. You don't have to really scrape your grill. It doesn't cake on the grill as much. So, and it's easy to flip over with just a metal spatula. Okay, so going to another favorite, we can talk about ceviche. Now I'm making it now, but this is a good picture. I don't know if you want to put that one up, Janet.
Sure, let me just track it down.
Okay, these are ceviche cups, and what I like to do is, and let me actually, I usually use fresh ginger, which I'm doing right now. I'm going to grind some fresh ginger. Now jalapeno is the main ingredient. Even if you don't like it spicy, if you don't put the jalapeno in, you won't have the flavor. And you can actually put almost a whole jalapeno in with 1.5 pounds of fish, and it won't be that spicy. There's something with the lemon that takes the edge off the jalapeno. So I like to cut up 1 ripe mango. So I'll add chopped up mango. I have my cilantro, which I use in a lot of fish dishes. It's very nice. And the secret ingredient, in addition to using limes, is lemons and oranges. So I use equal part lemon and orange, and then double the amount of lime. So for example, if you had a fillet of halibut, which I actually have here, I'm going to make that tonight too. I would put a whole orange, a whole lemon, and then 2 or 3 limes, and just get them all juiced up. And you can strain the seeds through a strainer if you want to put all the juice together into some separate bowl. And the other magic ingredient, if you're making ceviche, is to use rice wine vinegar. Now I usually get the seasoned flavored one. This is a plain one. I didn't have the seasoned one handy here, but I put like 2 tablespoons of that in as well. Oops, there's a picture coming of the ceviche. I don't see it, Janet, I just see blank.
Sorry, I'm working on it. Hold on.
Okay. The other addition to the ceviche is you want to have the equal amount of sugar and salt. So you would take white sugar, maybe a teaspoon, and maybe 1/2 teaspoon of salt actually. for that. And I can send the recipe off to you. I love to garnish it with edible flowers from my garden. And you can buy those at any of the farms, even into the late fall, usually. It's just a nice way to present it. And when I have dinner parties, it's a nice appetizer to pass around. You can buy little cups for it, or you can serve it on endive spears. So that's a nice way to go. All right. So another one of my favorites is halibut under the broiler. Now the recipe for halibut under the broiler, which is like no fail, it sounds kind of gross, but you take mayonnaise and mustard powder and you mix about, I'd say, 1/3 cup of mayonnaise and 1 whole teaspoon of mustard powder. And then I add this thing, which is called dukkha, which you can buy. It's a mix of toasted sesame seeds, what else? Coriander, hazelnuts, and coconut and black pepper. That's a spice. There's a store, I don't know if you can see it. It comes like that, pre-made. And it just gives a really nice flavor to that kind of a marinade. And so I would put that on any kind of fish. I love it on halibut. You smear it on the halibut and you broil it for about 5 minutes on one side, flip it over, smear some more on top, that whole mixture. And under the broiler, it's just, it almost gets a little bit caramelized and almost looks like it's about to burn, but that's when it's ready. So you have to go all the way with that. A similar type of base wet sauce, which actually, hope he doesn't get mad, Harvey Young taught me, has blue cheese dressing in it. Blue cheese dressing is his base, and I've adapted what he does with, which is mustard powder, a little bit of lemon zest, and at the end, you can put some lemon juice in before you let it marinade. I also add chopped garlic, thyme, any fresh herbs from the garden. I actually like to use sage when I'm making fish too. That's another favorite.
I'm gonna try this real quick if I can share. Hold on one second.
Okay.
Never mind. I'm gonna email the pictures myself and we can show them all at the end.
I can try to show it to you. And this is actually a picture of what, if you're putting your fish in that kind of cedar package, that papoose, and you can just add anything to it and just tie it up, and you can, it just basically is it's a different way of doing like un papillote, which is, you know, a paper pouch. So it steams the fish. And, you know, you can Google different times depending on the thickness, but I usually like to undercook certain fishes rather than overcook. So I would do salmon again. If it was in the oven at 400 degrees, I would probably only do it for about 12 minutes total. But most people like it cooked a little longer. You can always take it out and take a look and then put it back in because you don't want to overcook the fish. So that's another favorite of mine. Another wonderful way to cook fish is in tomato sauce. Now, sometimes if you have extra pasta sauce lying around, or if you just have stewed tomatoes, like I make my own tomato sauce from the garden. I do this every year. I make tons of it. I love it. It lasts about a couple of months because my son and my husband and all of our friends like to eat it up. But whenever I make the pasta, I always have a little bit of sauce lying around. I don't always use the whole jar. So I'll take a jar full of tomato, any amount of tomato sauce. Sometimes you can saute before you put the sauce in, saute some onions and garlic, and then add the tomatoes. You can add fresh tomatoes, or you can add just any stewed pelati, like you would make the plain tomatoes for pasta sauce. And just do a quick boil, a rapid boil. And then I basically pour that on top of fish, and you can either do it in the oven, or you can even do it in the pan, in the saucepan. You can put the fish right in the saucepan and let it cook in there, almost like it's boiling into that sauce. And you could do it for shrimp, or you can do it for any kind of seafood that you like. I've also done it with scallops, which is nice. of course, those are much quicker, so you want the sauce to be totally hot before you add the scallops. And then another dry marinade that I do love is taking chopped up fresh garlic with any fresh herbs from the garden and just making a paste with it. So you make a paste. Garlic always is a good base for me. I love garlic in everything. If you don't like garlic, you can just do it without and add some, make sure you add a little bit of salt and pepper or something to flavor it. But using those types of elements to put a dry paste on top of your fish, it's not water producing. Is a lovely way you can stick it in the fridge for an hour or two or overnight. And that's a nice way to flavor your seafood. So, does anybody have any questions? Hello? I guess you're muted.
Oh yeah, you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
yourself.
Have a question.
Yeah. Oh, I see there's a chat. Let me see the chat room.
Oh, hashtag cooking with Lyd.
Okay.
Let me see if I can, I'm furiously trying to find photos. Oh, here we go. I think I have two. I think this is the sauce. So let's try this. See if this works. So that's, I think the sauce you were talking about, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah, so that's my basic sauce that I use for the halibut. So it's got mayonnaise. You can see the mustard powder in there. You've got the sage leaves. I had a little bit of oregano from my garden, and I usually use dry thyme. For some reason, the thyme doesn't grow in Nantucket that well, so I always have to buy dry. You can add mint if you want, or basil and mint if you want a different type of flavor. I would not put the mint together with these herbs, but Greek food would do that. And then mix it up, and just, you could put it in a Ziploc or you could put it in a bowl and just cover, mix it up nicely and make sure the fish is totally coated. And again, all you need is really 20 minutes, but a half an hour is like average, and up to 2 hours or overnight if you are preparing for a special dinner that you want to just have it all ready. Oh, the blue cheese marinade. Okay, Nanette, hi. Oh, these are the ceviche cups. So the blue cheese marinade is, you take a bottle of blue cheese dressing, or you make your own blue cheese dressing. Blue cheese dressing is basically mayonnaise and blue cheese. So it's the same concept as the mayo, which kind of marinates it using a base of, it's an oil base. But you can just buy any blue cheese dressing. I keep jars of it in my pantry, and I love it on swordfish, actually. Blue cheese dressing on swordfish, it sounds kind of gross, and a lot of people don't even like blue cheese come over to my house and they're like, oh my God, this is delicious, what's in it? And they're shocked that it has blue cheese in it. But you basically mix those things together, just like what's in that photograph. You can mix any herbs that you want. Again, the mustard powder is really essential. If you don't have mustard powder, you can use regular mustard. It's not going to be the game changer. But there's something about, if you can get the mustard powder, which Stop and Shop sells, all the stores in Nantucket sell it. It's just a nice, it's just a wonderful way to flavor your fish. And there's something about mustard with fish, with seafood, that it's sort of, again, it caramelizes the fish. So doing that on swordfish is a wonderful marinade. Other people love my swordfish when I do with like an orange glaze. And an orange glaze is basically, I take olive oil, lemon juice, and orange marmalade. So orange marmalade goes on the fish, and you let it sit for a few minutes, and that's always a nice way to grill. It will burn up a little and caramelize because of the sugar. And then another thing I just got into this year, let me see if I have it in my pantry here, I think I do, is you can buy these nutty fish dry marinades. And let me just see what's in this. So this has dry roasted macadamia nuts, coconut flakes, light brown sugar, pineapple and ginger, and powdered garlic. So these are available at Lydias, and I think at Nantucket Meat and Fish. And they're worth their weight in gold, because if you don't know what to make for dinner, you can put this on meat or fish. This is a delicious touch, and they come in pistachio flavor or other types of flavors that have orange peels in them. It's just, even if you don't have the mix, you could put those elements together, and that just brings out a whole nother dimension of the seafood. So, anybody else?
I can pull up the ceviche if you want.
Yeah, pull up the ceviche.
Beautiful.
Let's see.
This goes, there it is.
So that's my ceviche. That one has mango in it. Some people are allergic to mangoes, which I never really realized until I served it when I was catering one night. And somebody was concerned about that. So I just made a separate batch for them. But this ceviche actually has both halibut and scallops. But you can use shrimp, you can use salmon, you can use any fish that's fresh. And I would always say that if you're making ceviche, make sure that you tell your seafood monger that that's what it's for and that you want a sushi quality ceviche. You could do the same thing with raw sushi grade tuna. And with tuna, I usually just like to do more of a rice vinegar, ginger, and sesame oil marinade. And the sesame oil that I like to use is toasted sesame oil, not just regular. So this gives it a nice flavor, and that always is nice with when you have tuna or toro. So, and I should show you what I'm doing, because this is my husband's favorite thing, is what I call, or he calls it Oriana potatoes. We once had we had a wonderful friend from Italy named Oriana. And so Oriana potatoes is just thinly sliced raw potatoes with tons and tons of fresh garlic on top of it, and extra virgin olive oil and sea salt. So I'm making that in the oven. That will be the base for my fish presentation tonight. So whatever kind of fish I make, you can put serve it on top of that platter. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm chopping as we speak. And I'll show you in a minute what I'm doing with the okay. Now, because here I don't have my microplane, I'm going to use, this is a cheese, this is actually for cheese grating, but I'm going to use it to do the ginger. Same concept as a microplane, except it gathers it in a little pocket. Then you can just pour it onto whatever you're making. So I'll do this for the ceviche, and I'll chop some cilantro up really fine. A South American way of doing fish is to put in, I don't know if you have a blender or Cuisinart or something that is, you can do it by hand if you chop with a knife, but you can chop up cilantro and parsley and garlic and oil and just make a big paste. And that's kind of like that's a staple sauce, that like a salsa verde. In fact, let me see what my salsa verde, when I have, if I have it in here. I can tell you what, if there's anything else I'm missing. Okay, salsa verde, cilantro, parsley, lime, garlic, and you can do jalapenos in that too. And you can also use crushed almonds, and you can also add some mayonnaise to that at the end. So if you want it to be, if you're serving it that day, if you're using mayo, I always say, serve it that day, because otherwise it could congeal a little bit in a funny way. But it's a delicious way to marinate meat or fish, and I love it on seafood. And I love doing that as a side serving dish to any plain fish. So if you have fish, even I've had it on the side for lobster. It's like a dipping sauce. It's kind of spicy, but it's kind of, it's yummy. So it's a fun way to eat. Or you can put on the toasted bread with the fish on the side.
Lyd, I think I see your swordfish. Let me pull up the picture and see, and you can tell us about it because it looks interesting. Hold on one second. Finally got myself all organized. Is that the swordfish you're talking about?
That's swordfish tips. Now, people seem to think that swordfish tips aren't that great, but one of the secrets that who told me when I learned about this sauce is that the swordfish tips are sometimes the best part of the swordfish, because it's the oiliest part. It's the part they cut off when they're making their main steaks. And that discard happens to have the most oily, delicious chunks. So you can actually get those. You have to ask at the fish store in advance because they don't just keep them on hand. I think they sell them very quickly. So, but they're delicious. And when I do dinner for like 4 or 5 people, I'll get 2 pounds of swordfish because they shrink up a little bit. Swordfish tips, they shrink up a little bit, but that's the amount that I would buy. And even my son, who doesn't like fish too much, will eat tons and tons of it. It's really a crowd pleaser. You can also do it on barbecue skewers with you know, tomatoes and zucchini, any kind of vegetables in between, you know, peppers, onions. Red onions are really good for that. And we talked about last time marinating onions for marinated vegetables. Any kind of marinated vegetables would be good on a skewer with that, or on as a side dish.
And what do you have on the swordfish? It looks like a
That's
cream.
the blue cheese dressing with
Oh, it
thyme
is.
in it, and you've got some the mustard powder, a little salt and pepper, and lemon juice. So that one has a whole lemon full of lemon juice for every 2 pounds of fish. And that's the one thing you don't want to do overnight. That one you want to do within 2 hours at the most, because otherwise you're going to, even I do that for a half an hour. Otherwise it could maybe make the fish a little bit cooked in like a ceviche. So any kind of heavy acid will pre-cook the fish for you. So you don't want to do it that heavy. So just adding my garlic to the potatoes while we talk.
I have a couple more. Hold on. Stand by. These are beautiful pictures. I wish I had them already. So here they are.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so that's the baked halibut.
And we have it before and after. So this is the before.
Okay, that's with the mayonnaise and mustard sauce. And I have my thyme on there. And there's also thyme in the sauce, but it's also pretty for the presentation. And that I've done in the oven on parchment paper, the kind that you can cook with, or you could put, you know, just put in a pan, just make sure you oil the pan so it doesn't get stuck. And it's a really delicious fish. That piece is probably 1.5 inches thick, so that would go in the oven probably a little bit longer than normal because of the thickness. And you just want to do it until it starts, till you start smelling it smoking. Once it smokes, then it's, you don't want to overcook it. You flip it over, and then you smear equally, you know, spoonsful of that sauce. And that sauce can also be served as a side dipping sauce. I mean, I don't like to have mayonnaise on the side as a dipping sauce because I like that it cooks off. But if you're, you know, little children that don't like fish, that's a wonderful way to introduce them to fish. It's just so delicious.
We actually cook a lot of our fish in cast iron. So we heat the pan up to 450, put the fish in and cook it for 10 minutes.
Nice.
Would we ruin our pan, do you think, if we did like a glaze or something like that?
Well, you'd have to, you know, heat it up and oil it well to get it clean afterwards. I don't think it ruins the pan at all. You know, cast iron cooking, I would probably do more seared fish. My favorite seared fish for cast iron cooking is a thick, fleshy fish like a halibut. You could use sea bass, Chilean sea bass, any kind of bass, any kind of thicker fish. I don't like to cook thin fish. I just feel like it's going to fall apart on the pan when you're searing. But you know, I get it really hot with. I don't use extra virgin olive oil when I'm searing fish. I put a plain olive oil, like a, you know, it's not the first press. It's gone through the filter. So it's not, you're not going to smell or taste that olive oil flavor. But I do use, my favorite way to do that is just plain garlic powder and a little bit of salt and pepper. And just, you know, you put one side on. If it's a thick chunk, you have to do more than one side, more than 2 sides. As you know, you have to sort of flip it around and have the stand on its end. But that's nice. And another way to do that, if you have a large crowd, is to sear one side, flip it over, and then stick it in the oven for about 10, 15 minutes at like 325. You don't want to overcook it, but something like Chilean sea bass can handle the heat longer than a regular fish can, but that's a nice way to go. Anyway, I'm gonna put my potatoes in. This is my Salino Toscano. I'm gonna douse it in extra virgin olive oil. I use extra on that because it's gonna soak in. And I'm gonna have some sea salt. Actually, I'm gonna use kosher salt. So kosher salt, like if you're cooking a lot, it's really the best salt for cooking. I know a lot of people aren't used to it, but there's just something about a kosher salt that when you're, especially if you're grilling or any kind of cooking, it's not good to use iodized salt. It's just too salty. So I'm gonna put that in. I'm gonna put the rosemary in a little later so it doesn't burn. So I'm gonna do my first cooking of the potatoes just with the garlic, and then I'll stir in the rosemary. And that'll be the bed for the fish that I'm doing.
Actually, I'm going to cross market for a second. Amy just did a whole presentation, I think last week or the week before, on salt.
Oh,
So I'll put that in the chat if people want to know more about salt. And she covered all the different kinds and textures of salt. So, and she brought that up, that ionized salt, it was a good source of iodine for people, but it's
not good for cooking.
Yeah.
My favorite salt, which is really hard to get, and it's really expensive, and I hope he lowers the price, is Eat Fire Farm herb salt. I'm at the end. This has lasted me like almost 2 years. But that is wonderful. You can get it at the Saturday market. And I think it's amazing. And it goes with everything. I can use it on every single dish, salads, meat, fish. It's just something special. So. Any other questions? Anybody?
I do have another picture to share if you want. I have two more
Sure.
pictures.
Go ahead.
Here we go. Stand by. Let's see, I think it's this one. There. So we have some salmon, it looks like.
So hold on a second. That salmon is gravlax. So gravlax you can make with at your own home. If you get a nice piece of salmon fillet, make sure there's no bones in it. And basically the recipe for gravlax is equal parts sugar to kosher salt. And you put it in a non-reactive pan. So I put in a ceramic dish, something like, baking dish. And you put plastic wrap over it, and you put something heavy on top of it, and you want weight on it because you're going to be, the salt takes the water out of it. The other thing is this gravlax has chopped dill and chopped herbs from my garden, probably thyme again. And so you can coat the whole entire outside with dill and any herbs that you like. Again, salt and sugar, you basically actually take for a big piece of salmon, I take a full cup of sugar, a full cup of salt, mix it up, wrap this whole thing in plastic wrap. So it's actually going to be, you can actually wrap the whole thing inside and in a pocket and then put the weight on top of it. And that, you turn it, like you leave it overnight and then the next morning you just flip it over. So you're basically, it's like stirring it in. And that can marinate for, 2 days or so. I do it usually for 2 days. You want at least 24 hours, but 2 days to me, it makes a nice flavor. And then I usually serve it on, on anything, on toast. You can have it with, this is served on a bagel, which I made homemade bagels with cream cheese. And I love the caper berries. Like those are the giant caper berries that look, they look nice to present, and sliced red onion as well. So that's something, a nice breakfast or brunch kind of offering, or also for an appetizer at a cocktail party. You can make little squares of any kind of toast, like even just French bread. And that's a nice way to serve it.
And then I have this one too.
So that's another, that looks like halibut. That's halibut, and I dusted it with dill at the end, fresh dill, but that has, some sort of mayonnaise marinade again. I can't tell what's in that one exactly, but that's a delicious way to serve the halibut. And that one was done on the grill. So that was done without any of the cedar grill paper. That was just done purely out on the grill outside. And you know, I flip it over, you do one side and then flip it over on the other side. So I would start with the top of it, so that, I'm sorry, the bottom. You put the bottom on first. I'm sorry, I'm confused. You want it to end up on the top. So you'd start putting the top down and then flip it over. So you have the beautiful side up at the end, basically.
What, I think you already mentioned this, but what do you do? I've had problems. That's why we use the cast iron, because it's just been foolproof. But what do you do to keep it from falling apart and falling through and sticking?
I use a grill pan,
Okay.
and you can get it at Island, at the marine store. You can have, it's a grill pan that has holes in it. So it's basically a dish that has holes. And that's, you know, I use that for all fish. You can, that way you can even do small shrimp or scallops sometimes right on the grill. And the main thing to do is to coat that with a non-flavored oil. So I would use canola oil for that, or a non-flavored olive oil, or an olive oil canola mix. Yeah.
Any other questions or comments?
I have to tell you a funny story. So tonight, I'm not in Nantucket tonight, I'm in New York. Tonight, I promised Vladimir I'd give him a plug, because I went to Cinderella to get the fish, and at the front door, the manager greeted everyone saying, "Just want you to know that the scale for the fish isn't working tonight." So I said, "Wait a second." It was literally an hour before we started. I said, "I need fish." So he so kindly let me buy fish tonight. But I normally buy my seafood fresh from Glidden's, my favorite place. I love all the other seafood places on the island too, but that's just my favorite place to get fish. I love what they've done with the store, the new family that took over. And I love all the different side spices that they're selling. Or you can get sushi wrapper things and all the different side dishes, and I also love their smoked pate, the smoked bluefish pate, which I think is the same original recipe that the Glidden's had. So, plug for Glidden's. Any other question? Nobody? Okay, in the chat room.
What do you have planned for Thanksgiving this year?
I usually make a pretty big spread. I do everything from a big bird to we do sweet potatoes. We do all kinds of. My favorite thing is the little what do you call it? Those little Brussels sprouts, which I cut an X in the bottom of them, and I stick a whole clove of garlic, like a whole half a clove of garlic in that. Drizzle them with olive oil and just roast them in the oven with salt. It's amazing. And I never liked Brussels sprouts until I tasted those. I probably make about 3 different types of pies. I always do a big apple pie, which I love. And I love to make carrot cake, actually. It's one of my favorites. And I'll do a ricotta cheesecake, which this is for tonight, a mini ricotta cheesecake for my husband. Oh, anyway. So that's what I'll do. A little Italian, a little American. But we do everything. We have so many side dishes. You know, one wants cream spinach, one wants steamed spinach. You know, baked potatoes, creamed, you know, mashed potatoes. It depends who's coming, how many side dishes I do. But we're going to do at least 6 side dishes. And then I have leftovers, and I do two different kinds of stuffing, because my mother-in-law's stuffing is Italian, has sausage in it. My stuffing has herb breadcrumbs, which I make my fresh sourdough bread, and I plump fruit, like dried fruit. So I'll do raisins and chopped up apricots, And I use lots of different fresh herbs in there too. So, but that's my stuffing, is not, doesn't have meat in it, but has like dried, so it's salty and sweet. Whereas my husband would die if I don't make my mother-in-law's stuffing. So, and that has to be from Something Natural Bakery, the pre-made breadcrumbs. If I don't do that, I get shot.
And you might have already talked about this. You just got back from Italy. Is there anything special you brought back, like culinary wise?
Yes, I think I'm sure. Oh, the salt. Where's that salt? I always buy things from Italy. This was a gift from Enoteca Marcucci, which is in Pietrasanta. The owner gets specialty items. He always has something interesting. So he gave this to me. It's a special type of honey that's organic from the beach, dalla spiaggia. And then where's my salt? I have a beautiful salt here. Oh, so this is salt with wildflowers. So this is called Sapori Antichi Sale con Fiori di Campo. So I don't know if you can see the flowers, but they're in there, and it's really, really pretty colors.
So when you cook with that or use it, will it taste floral? You don't know.
I actually don't know yet. I'm going to try that. We're trying it tomorrow. Well, I put it on my salad tonight, so I'll know tonight. But I hadn't opened it yet. But you know, the funny thing is, I don't usually buy that much food in Italy because one of our family friends imports all the Italian food from Tuscany that's sold in Nantucket. So she, Federica Fabrini, she imports Sonia Toscana. So, you know, we get the oils. This is my favorite oil for cooking, and you can order it directly from her. You can get it at probably at Nantucket Meat and Fish and at 167. Oh, I also love 167 Seafood. I have to say, I go back and forth between there and Glidden's. But this is my favorite oil. It's extra virgin. And then I have a special oil, which I'm only supposed to be using for drizzling, but I cook with it. This is for drizzling only. So it's some fancy extra virgin. It's called Fattoria. And it's really amazing. I mean, just the smell, you can just smell it. It smells very pungent from far away. So that's one of my favorite things that I get from them. And another thing which I do recommend if you want something so fun, they have Sonia makes it's a red, like a yellow tomato ketchup. And this I've seen at either 167 or at Nantucket Fish and Meat. It's delicious, and it's better than, you know, the regular ketchup. It's just fun to have these things. And then another item which I use a lot, which is also from there, is she makes a truffle honey. So this, you can also get this on the island. So this I would serve. I like to make homemade ricotta for whenever I can. So I use whole milk, a whole gallon of whole milk. And I can send you the recipe to it, but it's basically, I use white vinegar. I forget the amounts. I can look it up while we're talking. And when I actually, as it's warm, I put it on a plate with Marcona almonds, and then I just drizzle like half a jar of that on top of it. And you can serve it with bread, or, you know, crusty bread or crackers. Let's see, ricotta. I'll give you my personal recipe. So it is.
And when you heat it, do you heat it just in a pot, or what do you heat?
Yeah, just any kind of pot, like, you know, that you boil your pasta in. So the recipe would be 1 gallon of whole milk, 1 cup of heavy cream, half a teaspoon of salt, 3 teaspoons of, I use white vinegar. You could use lemon juice, but sometimes I feel like lemon juice makes it taste lemony. And I guess if you're making like ricotta pancakes, it works. But for me, I like the white vinegar. And you
wait on, it's one gallon of whole milk and how much heavy cream?
1 cup of heavy cream. That's the diet version. The non-diet version is half a gallon of milk and 1 cup of cream.
Okay.
I have made it with low fat, with like 1% milk before. It's actually very good. 1 or 2% milk. It works. You can try it. once you put the vinegar in, it will, so basically you slowly bring the milk and the cream to a boil. And you add the salt. And you just, right before it's a rolling boil, that's when you just turn it off, take it off, you add the lemon juice or your vinegar, and you just, you simmer it and you stir it with like a slotted spoon, and you'll see it immediately curdles. So it takes about 5 minutes for it to curdle. I just take it off the heat, and then you have just a regular strainer, but you can line it with a cheesecloth. So if you don't have a cheesecloth, you can get like a really thin strainer, but you can buy a cheesecloth at the Stop and Shop. It's pretty easy. And I usually put 2, double it over, because it just holds it better. And then you just put it in a bowl, like over in the sink, in a strainer, and you can save the milk from it. That makes whey. That's the actual whey. And a lot of people, like my teenage son, who likes to have, you know, energy whey drinks and stuff, you can use, that has a lot of protein. Just the liquid that comes out of that is high protein. So you can chill it in the fridge and use it in cooking, or you can, you know, most people don't throw out the whey, they use it, but I sort of don't always.
Because I was using whey protein powder, so could I put it in a smoothie, or is it going to taste?
Oh yeah, no, it's delicious. You can put it in something. Yeah.
And someone asked about what type of vinegar. You said white vinegar you should put.
I just use white vinegar. I like white vinegar. I don't like it to taste sharp like lemons, but it is good if you're making it for brunch with pancakes, to have the lemon juice flavor. It's not very lemony, but I like it more pure with the ricotta.
Is there any risk of, and then you let it, how long do you let it strain and then you put it in the fridge? Like how long does that?
You can let it strain for like 10 minutes. It's ready. You can eat it right then. And I like to eat it when it's warm. It's soft and it's, you know, it's good on bread. Or you can save it in the fridge. You have to just wrap it well. I put it in a Tupperware usually, and just, it doesn't, or a jar. I've been getting away from plastic. I use these jars for almost everything. I'm trying not to use plastic.
Yeah, I successfully made yogurt once, but then I tried to make it again and it didn't work out. So I just have this fear of like curdling and sour milk and everything, but you're making it fresh. It's there right away. So
Yeah.
don't worry about that.
So, okay. Anything else? Any other questions? Oh, I see my neighbors here, Jean. Hi. So nice. All right. Well, if that's it, if there's any other questions, you can reach me through Janet Forrest at the Atheneum.
I'll put my email in the chat real quick here, and Amy's really easy to reach. Atheneum.org. And that's it. And yes, check out, we'll have coming up, I'm going to do something on cranberries coming up next week.
Wow.
Baked and cocktails and all kinds of things. So, and I'll let everyone know you can watch this on YouTube. You'll be able to watch everything again.
Okay. And I am working on a cookbook. So I'm working on a cookbook that has to do with lots of different things. But if you, you know, want to know more about that, Janet can tell you too. So, okay. Thank you so kindly for having me again.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Okay.